Hi, my name's Rebekah Fonden. I'm a community organizer, speaker, and survivor of human trafficking. I grew up as a native in Seattle, and I've seen the long-term effects that trafficking has had within our city. Many people ask, does trafficking happen here? Isn't this something that happens overseas or in other countries? And the reality is that it's very prevalent within our communities right here within King County, right here in Washington State. Trafficking can affect anyone. From any walk of life, any background, any socioeconomic status, it has no bias. Although it does disproportionately affect marginalized communities, poor, LGBTQ youth, homeless, runaways, trans, immigrants and asylees, indigenous communities, it affects the most vulnerable of our populations. I didn't truly understand that I was a victim of human trafficking until my internship with the Superior Court my senior year at the University of Washington. I had the opportunity to work with different stakeholders and take classes and just learn and understand. It took me about 10 years, and I'm not alone. Many women, many men don't realize they're a victim of human trafficking because they've had ingrained within their head for so many years that it was their fault that they chose that life. And the reality is that I didn't choose. You know, as a child, I grew up in a home where I had both parents that were in my life. My father was an engineer. They had me in private school all the way up until high school. My junior year is when everything kind of changed for me. I was like the girl next door. I played basketball. I had a lot of friends. I was extremely involved in my school. I went to a party over the summer of my junior year, and I drank a lot, with one of my girlfriends, and I ended up passing out at a party. And that night I was raped, and that really just, changed my life. I didn't realize how it affected me moving into my senior year. I started acting out, and my parents just kind of asked me, like, what's wrong with you? Why are you doing all these things and doing drugs? And they didn't know how to react. They didn't know what questions to ask. If they would have asked questions like, what happened to you? How can we help? Instead of what's wrong with you? They didn't really understand because I wasn't opening up to them about what had happened to me and how it truly affected me. And I put it behind me because I thought it was my fault. I was the one who drank. I went to the party and left myself vulnerable to be passed out in a situation like that. And the reality is that it wasn't my fault. But that really affected me. That experience made me act out, and my parents not understanding, they ended up kicking me out my senior year. Within that 2-week period of when my parents had kicked me out and I was kind of staying on friends' couches, a trafficker got a hold of me. He saw my vulnerabilities. I didn't have a job that was stable. I didn't have a place to stay. I didn't know how I was going to feed myself in the future. I had a backpack of clothes. I didn't really have anything. So what was presented to me when he came up to me is saying, I'll love you. I'll be there for you. I'll take care of you. I'll do these things, just come live with me. And all of the things that he was saying sounded so wonderful. But within a couple days, weeks of moving in with him, I realized that was all of a facade. It was a lot of, if you love me, you'll do this. Now that you live here with me, you have to pull your weight. How are you going to pay the rent? The coercion and the force kind of came from, if you leave, I'll kill your family. If you leave, I'll burn their house down. A lot of these things that traffickers will use these threats so that if you do try to leave, you're too scared. They want to try to own you. It's kind of like DV. I watched a lot of abuse over the years. I watched women get abused, and I was abused. Trafficking is much like DV. People from the outside may look at the situation and say, why don't they just leave? But in reality, it might be more dangerous for me to leave that situation in that moment because of the threats of violence that I have on my life. I was trafficked over multiple state lines over the course of 2 years. Luckily, I was able to get out. I went on house arrest for 3 months, and my trafficker couldn't find me within that time, and I was able to try to move on with my life and just rebuild everything that had been taken from me. So I became a hairstylist and I did hair for many years. And it came to a point where I realized that I wanted more for myself. So I enrolled in school. I recently graduated from the University of Washington with a communication and business degree. In my senior year, as I was looking into an internship, I was hit with the harsh reality that I have a criminal record and I'm not going to be able to get a job that I want because of what happened to me in my past. There are so many barriers that survivors of human trafficking have to climb over as they exit the life, whether it's employment, access to school, access to college, being able to do work study with a criminal record, access to housing. There's so many barriers to people who have been prostituted that want to re-enter society. So for me, having a criminal record, I had realized my senior year in college at the university that I wanted to become a lawyer. And I thought that because of my criminal record that, they wouldn't see that I was fit to be one. I was able to meet with Ariana Orford from Legal Hope, and she connected me with a pro bono lawyer. And we started looking into my background and my cases, and they told me that it's a possibility that my record could potentially be vacated. So the past year, I went through the process with my lawyer, Vinny, and he sat down with me and took the time. He wasn't even being paid for it. It was so amazing to see an ally who cared so much about me being able to be a working member in society that he would take his time to help me vacate my record. And just a couple months ago, I was able to clear my record in King County. I had 2 of my convictions completely taken off. This was such, a success for me in my life. I feel like I don't have this weight on my shoulders. I feel like when I go to volunteer in my daughter's school, I won't have to explain my past. When I go to apply for a house, I won't have to explain what I went through or employment. It's completely changed my life. The Waves Foundation for me has, given me the ability to chase my dreams, to become a lawyer one day, to go to school and not have to worry about having to relive and re-traumatize myself every single time I try to make strides forward.